Hey there, ladies and gentlemen out there in internet land. How are you all today? This is your friend Charlie Hunter. Now, I'm alone today. I'm alone here. Ms. Betty Sue is winging her way somewhere between Texas and she's probably over Tennessee right now, or maybe over Arkansas. I'm looking at a map. There's a map immediately behind the computer that I always to railroad map from the 1930s. But anyway, it's lovely to see you all. I thought today I'd talk a little about what's been on the easel, kind of what's been my process of late. And the major thing that is going on for me in terms of my art stuff is that I am quite unexpectedly, I never thought about it when I started being a professional artist, but having enough ongoing paintings to supply the galleries. I mean, one is so complimented when a gallery wishes to represent one, and strategically you think, I need one. I should have one here in Vermont, and so I work with a seasonal gallery here in Vermont. I've got Will Basic in Northampton, Mass, who I've known for decades. McClary out in Santa Fe, I've worked with for over 10 years now. I've got, since I do plein air Texas, I now have a gallery in Houston. I've got a gallery up in Bozeman, Montana, they did very well with a friend of mine, a photographer named Jim Westphalen, and they asked, and he recommended me to them, and they asked if they could handle my stuff, and I've sold very well there. Jane Bellmeyer out in Utah. Just they're all over the place. I've got these galleries, and I've got a vague sense of I don't have enough paintings. And so what has happened recently is every few years when there's kind of the great wheels of life occur, when people who are close to one are in the process of passing on to the next great adventure. I tend to do these paintings with birds in them. There's no great symbolism to that. It is just what I seem to do. And I've learned enough over the years to not really question when I feel something, when something's genuinely moving within me. So I'm going to switch to the slideshow now. I had this painting that you see on the left here that was inspired by taking the Texas Eagle, which is a train from Austin, Texas, back to Vermont. Well, it goes from San Antonio to Chicago, and then you get on the Lakeshore Limited, colloquially known as the Lake for Shore Limited. But you get on the Texas Eagle and travel across Texas for the day, overnight, and then the next morning you're going through southern Illinois before getting into Chicago in the early afternoon. And that landscape of southern Illinois, it's misty and flat. It's very, very unlike Vermont. And so I've done this painting, and I liked that painting, but it did not feel like there was enough center to it. And having just remembered the Portlandia series from about 10 years ago, they had an episode called Put a Bird on It, which was whenever you have any crafty item that isn't selling, put a bird on it. It's like what Don Demers says about doing maritime paintings. That if it hasn't sold and hasn't sold and hasn't sold, you just put the red boy in there somewhere, and it'll sell. So anyway, I put this crow, which does have resonance for me as to what some stuff that's going on in my family. And that provided the center of interest that the painting had been lacking. It gave it a focus, and people have really responded positively toward it. And immediately, my gallery, the Will Basic gallery, Will Basic Fine Art in Northampton, asked if they could include it in their show that opens March 1st. That's primarily of animals. So I said, sure. And then that made me think, oh gosh, I've got a show at McClary this spring that will coincide with the plein air convention. At least I think I still have that. I haven't checked in with them recently. I hope I do. So what am I going to do? So I thought, well, that avian element really helps focus these barren landscape paintings that I've been doing. And I had this sitting around. I've had this sitting around for about 2 years. It's a 16 by 32. It is of, well, it's a sky painting. And I thought it was of Arizona, maybe. But I wasn't happy with because the landform against the sky reminds me a lot of what it looks like out the train window when you're on that section between Albuquerque and Los Angeles. Late in the afternoon, you're going through the Red Rock area around after Williams and around after Gallup, New Mexico, and you're going into Arizona. But it hadn't really come together, and I've been smearing various paint mixtures on the foreground to see if anything started functioning. Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, normally, you know how Betty Sue puts comments up on the screen? Since she's not here, I can see that comments are coming in, but I can't really read them at this point. I will respond after this is done. But anyway, the comments won't be coming across the bottom just because I'm not that coordinated. Anyway, so I had this painting sitting around. And as I say, 16 by 32, it's muslin on an aluminum panel. No particular reason. I just had aluminum panels and I didn't want to paint directly on the aluminum. So I put the muslin down. Nice, very nice surface. Painting had been stuck. I tried flipping it upside down to see if anything happened. Not really, not on this one. So went back to staring at this. But now, with my recently completed Southern Illinois painting, I said, what if I turn this into Southern Illinois? And what if I put a bird on it? So I did. Same painting. That to that. I obviously knocked the sky down a little bit. I made it a little bit less dramatic and reworked the foreground quite a bit. You can still see some of the old color coming through, and that's one of the great gifts of using basically transparent pigments, is you get beautiful kind of prismatic effects. A lot of spattering down on the bottom, which is taking very, very watery. Remember, I use Cobra water mixable oils, using very, very watery oil, kind of blocking off the top so the spatters don't get into the sky, and then just taking a toothbrush and spattering, and that breaks up the color nicely. So I thought, oh yeah, so, okay, got that finished, 16 by 32. That also got a very positive immediate response. It occurs to me that the gallery in Bozeman, and right now there seems to be a trend toward wanting bigger stuff. So if I've gone through this exploration that really works well, why not do a scaled up version of this? So I took a 24 by 48, 2 foot by 4 foot, and I'm going to do a larger version, basically, of this painting. It is of a crow harrying a red-tailed hawk, which is one thing that crows enjoy doing. They will gang up on predator birds to try to scare them away from their nests, even though crows are terrible about eating other species baby birds out of the nest and eggs and stuff like that. But it's still pretty impressive when you see a crow harrying a top-line predator like a red-tailed hawk. So 24 by 48. First up is the sky. For those of you interested in the process, I actually remembered to take pictures, not of every step. You'll say, what the hell, Charles, at one point coming up, but bear with me, doing the best I can. Because the problem is, if you take pictures of every step, then you're so concerned about taking pictures of each step, you're not really thinking about the painting, you know? So I have not figured out the perfect solution. Anyway, so what I used for the sky is this menu: Cobra Titanium Buff, Cobra Raw Umber, and Cobra Van Dyke Brown. Then I use Artisan, which is Winsor Newton's line of water mixable oils that tend to be very spotty in quality. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're terrible. But I like their mixture for Payne's Gray better than I like the Cobra tint. It's the paint. Cobra paint is beautifully buttery, and the Artisan is a student grade, very stiff, but I still like the tone of the Artisan Payne's Gray better. And then I use the Artisan safflower oil. That is my basic medium. Safflower oil is not as strong as linseed oil, but it doesn't yellow like linseed oil does. And I'm very used to its properties. It's a bit slower drying than linseed. So I will have sitting in the studio at any time 5 or 6 paintings that I can't work on because they are still wet, you know. Let's see. So, and then in terms of the brushes, remember 2 foot by 4 foot, pretty big. So the brush that I'm using, the basic brushes, the 2100 series of rosemaries, which they're called a spalter brush. They're a hog bristle. I use the 6-inch brush and the 2-inch brush, and they've been discontinued. I sent an email to Simeon Rosemary asking why, but I have not heard back from them yet because I sent it off about an hour and a half ago. The closest in that they currently are offering, I was talking with Chuck at Wind River Arts. I don't know if you all know Wind River. Wind River is a wonderful art supply store down in Texas. They do a lot of mail order stuff, and they are basically the U.S., the major U.S. distributor of rose. They carry pretty much the full rosemary line. If you don't want to place orders, you know, over to England. But anyway, so we figure the 3099 series is probably the closest match right now, but they don't make a 6-inch 3099. I think they make a 2-inch. But you'll see here, there's down on the bottom right is a 2-inch 2100. The great huge brush is the 6-inch. And then if you guys remember the CW Monday talk the other day, we were talking about the Badger blender, the Rosemary Badger blender, series 37. It's the large. They make a small, medium, and a large. And boy, it is an indispensable brush. So that was the color mixture, and this is, I laid in the sky. It's basically, remember that the way I paint is really using the thickness of the paint film as much as possible to convey information, rather than doing huge color shifts. There's some subtle color shifts in the pigments in there, but really the highlight in the center section, the highlight area, is just that the paint isn't applied terribly thickly. So it has kind of that glow to it. And it all comes out being very unified because the differential is not wide chromatic difference, but instead thickness of paint film. I hope that makes sense. Next slide, please, Charles. So this is just a printout of a snapshot I took from the Texas Eagle, from the train in December 31st. And then on the right are one of my color charts. It's upside down because the colors match the photograph better. So I don't normally work upside down. So starting at the bottom, on the right, it says BS, that is Burnt Siena. Then BSYO, Burnt Siena Yellow Ochre. BSV, Burnt Siena Viridian. And BSU, Burnt Siena Ultramarine. And then if you know how the Richard Schmidt color charts work, you're trying to get an even graduation of tone from darkest dark to almost white. I did this in 5 steps, just adding white each time. And so I can pretty much get the colors the colors and values that I'm looking for with my normal palette. You know, that Burnt Siena, Viridian, and Ultramarine are what I've been painting with for the last, 12 years. The Burnt Umber and Van Dyke Brown are just kind of premixes that get me very close to a bunch of those tones. So by looking at that, I knew what colors I wanted to play with, to work with. I'm not playing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm working. What colors I wanted to work with. So here's my palette that I was working with to do the foreground of this painting. I'm going to skip ahead and show you what it looks like. Then I'll go back to this. And here's where I have to confess, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't take an intermediate picture showing what I did as the underpainting on the foreground. And I'm sorry, but I'm not a perfect human being. So that's what it looks like now. I'll go back 2, 3. I'll go back 3. That's what the sky looked like. Then I put in basically some yellow ochre in the foreground. And then I sprayed it with the spray bottle and squeegeed it and just made it all disturbed looking to be an underpainting. Yellow ochre is too strong. It's very opaque. I don't tend to use it very much in my final paintings, but in the final coats, but I will use it as an underpainting. So anyway, because this is a studio piece using a fairly large amount of paint, I have the big tubes of the Cobra Burnt Siena and the Cobra Permanent Green Deep, because they don't make a Viridian. They're supposedly introducing a Viridian this year. And the Permanent Green Deep is very stainy. You can see how it has that phthalo acidity to it, where it's very, very thin on the glass palette there. But if you do a thorough mixing, it does make the beautiful, that beautiful transparent, warm dark that is, to me, the color you can take anywhere at all. So back there, the Burnt Siena is up to the left, the Permanent Green Deep is to the right, and the mixture of the two is below them. That is what that brown is. That is not a tube brown. So that's what I came up with. And boy, that makes me happy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very happy with this. I'm very happy with this for a couple of reasons. One, it's close to the look that was in that photograph that I haven't been able to get before, because I've been trying too hard to match the exact color. This is that beautiful dark brown, the Burnt Siena Permanent Green Deep Brown, mixed together, applied thickly and at the bottom, and kind of dry brushed up, and then squeegeed and disturbed and hit with paper towels and rubbed out and then squeegeed again. And I got the straight line across by just having a T-square placed, so I had the painting flat, And I had a T-square placed at the horizon line. And I didn't really have it anchored in any way, but it just kept me from working up into the sky or getting a weird angle or something. So this is a close-up of what that foreground surface looks like. So there it is on the easel. Up close, the foreground looks like that. And that is the underpainting with that burnt sienna, permanent green deep mixture on top of it. And then squeegeed. Then I hit it with the spray bottle, sprayed water on it, and then pressed paper towel into it. That's how you get those nice spatters. Yes, that spatter kind of right in the center there is a little too big. But then you can see I'm also scratching it with the back of brushes. I am taking the stretcher bar keys and scraping with those. I'm trying not to have too much of the hand of the artist. It's not brushwork. It's disturbing a paint film with various tools is what I'm trying to do to give it a more of a naturalistic look. So this is up close or full screen of where the painting is at present. Other things I really like about it. I love the earth. The earth is doing exactly what I've been wanting to get with the earth. I also really like how the scale is almost unreadable. This could be looking right out the window of the train at just a farm field that's right in front of you, or it could be that you are on a hill looking down at an expansive landscape. I love that. And I love that all that seeming detail in the land is not detail at all. It's just squeegee marks, paint key scrapings, paintbrush scrapings, and rubbing with paper towels and stuff. So that is, I think is that it, Charles? Is that it for your slides? I think so. Yeah, that's it for the slides. I just wanted to give you an overview of kind of what my process is, especially when I need to actually be producing a fair amount of work. I'm trying not to do hack work. I'm trying to push myself constantly to learn from what I've done before. But I'm also trying to base that on on lessons learned. And this kind of is a decent example of it. So the next thing I got to do on this is, once it fully dries, is I'm going to put a bird on it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it. I think that's it for this week. I can't think of anything else screaming at me. I made a few notes, but boy, they're gibberish now when I look at them. All right, you take good care. And next week, Betty Sue will be here to ride herd. So thanks so much for joining us. It's a joy to see you all. Bye-bye.